They drink this in Valhalla.
This is Auto Collabs.
Don't worry, he's not drinking alcohol.
Nope.
He is drinking
Orange
what is that?
tangerine.
Vitamin orange tangerine mixed up with some water today. And you're here with us on Auto Collabs, not in Valhalla. So welcome everybody. It's been a minute. I'm in actually. The people don't know this if they're just listening. I'm in a whole new office.
Or
setup.
watching. They probably don't notice either.
They probably don't notice. Same blue color, except for I took down the hats. So I apologize to everybody that's confused.
You look incredibly crisp right now, though.
Doesn't he, though?
Oh, thank you.
Doesn't
Well,
he, though?
internet speeds are a little bit notched up at the old house.
All
So
right.
maybe that's what it is. I appreciate the note.
The compliment.
The compliment.
Got that old.
Well, none of that has to do with the fact that we're hanging out with Danny Zaslavsky today on the podcast. Guys, I'm excited.
Every time we talk with him,
Every time.
he always has something to contribute. He's just, but his nature is a contributor. I'll say
Yes.
that. Every room I've been in with him, every group I've seen him speak in front of, every personal conversation, he is someone who is oriented toward how can I contribute to you. And I see that span his personal life and his professional life, his contributions to the auto industry. So you just know you're going to get something good.
Danny, at one point, he said to me, he has me on a call. He's talking to me about ASOTU actually. And he goes, now listen, I've got an idea, but wait. I was like, huh? He goes, do me a favor. When you hear this idea, don't change your mission. Don't change what you want to do, and make sure you don't do anything for me that you wouldn't do for anybody else. Got it? I was like, okay.
What a setup.
That's
He's
next.
like, we should bring in McDonald's for everyone.
Boom.
And that's when our friendship ended. No.
Never spoke again.
All right. We hope you love this conversation that we have with Danny. Hey, we're here with Danny Zaslavsky. And if you try and say that name 5 times fast, you can't. Danny, thanks for joining us on Auto Collabs again, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Have you ever, you should like make
could
that
do
a
it.
party.
I could do
Right. Danny, for all the people that aren't, we were admiring just previously, for all the people that aren't watching this on video, we are admiring your handsome-ish tan there. And
I like the ish
yeah.
she throws in.
Yeah, because it's like, I'm gonna just like leave it just gently there. But well,
The only
first
thing
of
that
all,
makes my teeth whiter is when I get color, because
There you
otherwise,
go. Actually, so I'm just gonna get my teeth whitened and that'll fix
nah.
that. Yeah,
that'll
it's been a
fix
couple hours in
that.
the
look how
sun.
tan I am. Yeah.
So we were talking about before we got on here, and I love bringing on all the conversations from before we got on, but that like taking vacation as an entrepreneur, there's so many people in entrepreneur life or in dealership ownership roles or big, large roles in auto groups or dealers that, well, one, historically, our industry has positioned vacations as like, welcome back, part-timer, but that even since then, like it is hard to unplug when the business is so dependent on you helping it progress. Like, give us a little insight into what vacation looks like to you as an entrepreneur living in the auto industry.
It's a series of little tricks I play on my brain. My dad, growing up, would take 3 days into the vacation to actually be able to disconnect. And I watched him do that. And I watched the arguments my parents had of, why can't you, or you should, or whatever. And I never understood it. And watching my dad, and like,
Am I your dad? And I didn't realize it. Right?
so, and I projected on my dad. I'm like, dude, settle down. Like, enjoy, be here, be present. But what I took for granted was the vision that was pulling him, or the pain that was pushing him, whether it be on one of his cell phones or ideas he had in his mind, or the old question of, does art inspire life or does life inspire art? He was out in the world and he was seeing things and goes, I should use that in my business, or I should do, you know what I mean? So it's hard to disconnect. Today, the tips and tricks I do is like, when I'm on vacation, I stay away from social media. That's one of the, I don't look at other people's lives and I don't share anything about my life because I want to be present. And I rarely even share kind of where I go or what I did afterwards, because it's not about that for me. It's about being present. And I'm a mantra guy. So my mantra early on was, when I was going through some tough times about 7 years ago, it was look forward, move forward in all things and in all ways, because I knew where I was in that moment wasn't where I needed to be. And so I was thinking forward. So look forward, move forward in all things in all ways. And then when I got past where I didn't want to be and got into where I was, my new mantra was, the past is gone. The future's not here yet. Now I am free of both. And so that mantra like got me to be here. And years ago when I did some therapy of my soul, I asked my therapist a favor. She goes, "What do you want?" And I go, "Well, I want to know pain, but I want to know happiness. And if I know both, then I'm not ignorant to either. And I have like my control. I have control over my life and I could choose." And that shows up for all of us, like in maybe an argument we have with our spouse where we know we can push a little harder, but we choose not to because we know happiness and we know pain. And so that I take kind of that view of honestly vacation. And so I just got to go for 4 days to Florida and spend it with some friends and family. And it was awesome. And I could have picked up my computer. I could have made the call. And I could have.
You're like, because I saw that restaurant that was just amazing and I had ideas, right?
Exactly. I could have. But
Yeah.
I chose not to because the past is gone. The future's not here yet. Now I'm free of both.
Well, this has been Auto Collabs with Danny Zaslavsky. I mean, everybody's crying at home. They just
Exactly
wanna
why we don't
apologize to
title
the
things until the end. Exactly why.
And then your accountant at Country Hills is like, "Hey, Danny, we got to talk here. What is the $3,000 spent on burner phones from 7-Eleven?"
Yeah. Oh, by the
He's
way,
got them hiding in a vase. There's like a lot of hiding. But nothing, I love what you're saying, that be present in the moment. That's certainly something I think all of us on this call can relate to. It's almost seemed like this never ending battle of like, how do I be present in the moment and not sacrifice missing something that will be a memory for someone else in my family, but part of their memory will be dad sitting off in a corner ferociously pounding holes in his iPhone screen, right?
Glenn Lundy and Liza Borges said this. I don't know whose quote it is. Maybe it's one of theirs, maybe not. But they said there's a difference between spending time and investing time. When they say spend time with your kids or invest time with your kids, and I've liked some things you just hear loudly, and that has stuck. So I invest time with my kids. I spend time watching The Bear on Hulu that you told me to watch. So
it's true though. Like you think there are that just freeing yourself of social media. And the thing that I think is so beautiful about it is that your life continued after. The world did not come to a screeching halt. There are people right now at this very moment in time who cannot make it through their vacation without taking low lit, grainy photos of their dessert. You know what I mean? Like their hands, they're like Alanis Morissette.
It's like only take.
He was so close.
Well lit.
High quality photos.
Well lit. F
you're
stop
gonna do it. At
2
least
or
use
lower.
portrait mode.
They're Alanis, man. They got one hand in their pocket. They're just reaching for that phone. I got one hand in my pocket.
Oh, there's a great Canadian reference.
There it is.
Alanis Morissette. There's one in every episode. Alanis Morissette. So
go ahead,
I have
Paul.
a tie-up. So you're talking about the future's not here yet. The past is gone, right? And being in the moment. How does that connect to what we do as an industry with technology? Because right now we are in this spot where it's like the future's not yet here yet, but we're all talking about it a lot.
Ooh.
The past has been weird, right? The last several years of the past. But here we are in this place where people are talking about this mix between get back to basics and we have to do this thing with data and systems we've never, ever done as an industry well before. How do you navigate that in what you do? Because you have a foot in the dealer world. You have a foot in the dealer world and you have a foot in the technology world.
That's probably the best segue I've ever
that
been
knocked
a part
that
of.
one out there. Casey Jones.
Once in a while.
That was unreal.
So I think our job is to solve complexity. I think as humans, the older I get, the simpler I want things and the less I need to wear on my sleeve, because we earn the ability to understand. And as we learn the ability to understand, we get to choose how we apply that. And then at VinQ, there's principles that we behave by. And these aren't principles that we like necessarily see on a wall and that's our guiding principles and that's how we have to behave. It's principles because it's the way we're literally formed as a company. An example of that is we believe innovation happens on the front line. So how does that show up in real life? Our product, my dad, for example, used to buy buildings and say, what are we going to do with this building? What business are we going to put in it? And that's the definition of creating a product and then wondering how the world's going to use it. And that doesn't necessarily solve any complexity. But when you do it the other way around, when you say, what's the experience? What's the result? What's the intention here? And then you work your way back to product. Then for us, we end up with a better result. So if we know that our job is to solve complexity, one of the benefits we have is to see the landscape. And some companies innovate through acquisition. We haven't for a couple of reasons. We've chosen to innovate through innovation and partnerships. I shared this with somebody earlier, but being on the dealer side, when I used to walk the floors of NADA, I would see a lot of really cool solutions. And I would say, hey, which one of you can I install at my dealership to elevate our processes? And when we would do that, sometimes they would work. Obviously, sometimes they didn't. But as a person that now helps create solutions, it's also very easy to walk around the NADA floor and go, shoot, I can build that. When in fact, we have a zone of genius, and that's inventory. And when we find others that have the similar zone of genius, and when we can create partnerships to end up at the ability to solve complexity for our client, then whoa, that's like real power. So that's another tenet of ours, is we don't go wide, we go deep. And that's been, quite frankly, a maturing thing for us as a company. To preface, I define company as a company of people, no different than you throwing a party at your house and you have company over, and it's set by the culture you create. We're no different. We're a company of people.
Yeah, I love the NADA reference because, especially as like dealers are beginning to even just hire developers, not to create a new company, like they're trying to solve a problem internally, and so they like solve one problem, right? And as you like, the moment you have some developers on staff, you're like, oh, what else could they develop for me, right? And I think that this is the trick with it's a trick with a tech company, or the trick. There's so many things to do out there. I mean, like so many. You could create apps for days just to solve for the apps that you've created for days gaps, right? And there's like a two-prong issue here. One is that you just create more and more things that are wide, like you said, instead of deep, that don't actually like get to the root of the problem. And so you're always having to continually develop or acquire new development tools. But the other thing that actually happens, and I think this is where you are actually leaning first here, is you start to wrap your processes based on your product instead of your products based on your processes, right? Which is the most dangerous thing that I see dealer groups and dealers get into is, shiny new. This was DR, right? This was like DR at its core. Shiny new thing. Customers want to transact online. We tried to wrap our process around it, but the adoption curve was so slow because none of it actually fit what was happening in the showroom. How do you, like, as a company that has to continually innovate, how do you ward off the like shiny new object syndrome?
Just a filter.
And actually make sure.
Yeah, it's a filter of thinking. A feature is only a shiny object unless it lives within a process. When it lives within a process, it's a weapon. And when that weapon's used for good, then you're solving complexity. So we think about anytime we get a feature request, does it enhance a process? And processes, depending on the dealership or the dealership groups, are slightly different. And so I'll give you an example of one. We have a dealership group that asked this question. I love this question. They said, today we behave like a group of dealers. Tomorrow we'd like to behave like a dealer group. What is it going to take for us to behave like a dealer group? So for them, that meant changing the thinking of right car, right price when they're doing appraisals and or acquisitions to right car, right lot. Maybe that dealer that is appraising that vehicle, they may have bias because they didn't do well on the last one, or maybe they did really well on the last one. But they see it out of a very surgical filter. When we apply technology to be able to appraise a car as a dealer group, to bring in signals from the dealer group, to bring in other touches and other ideas, and do it in a live way, then all of a sudden you're now going from a group of dealers to a dealer group. And that's pretty cool. So like that's solving complexity.
I think you got us all on that one. It's just like the simplicity of the thinking, actually. But that's all great thinking, though. All great thinking is like you get it to the most concise thing possible, and there's beauty in the simplicity of it. And I think there are a lot of groups of dealers running around right now with this newfound scale,
which I don't think is a problem. I want to preface.
No, there's some groups that operate and like have operated like that for a long time, like the Rydell group.
It was just the right question asked.
It's intentional. There's not a wrong here.
That's right.
No different than I can't put calculus in front of my 10-year-olds and expect them to do it because
unless they have AI.
Yeah. They may not be interested or they may not be ready. And really the question is, what is going to, how do you meet others where they need to be met? I mean, that's training 101.
Yeah, some people just see it in a different way, right? Like Gary Vaynerchuk says, what's the ROI of a basketball? He's like, well, to me, nothing. LeBron James, right? A couple billion. And the same is true. Like you could take, and it's just, how does someone view the world? What is their intent behind going in that direction? And yeah, it's the best thing about the auto industry is that there are so many perspectives, and each of those perspectives can find a large group of people who sees the world that way, and they can go innovate in that direction. It's one of the things I love.
I was on a call, actually a Clubhouse, and Kyle, you were in it. And there's a guy named Daniel that was on there who I think is just one of the best fixed ops guys in the country. And the question was, if you were on an island and only had 3 tools, what 3 tools would they be? And he essentially said, screw the tools, have your performance manager on the demo versus which I was like, because that's innovation from the front line. I mean, that's literally taking the person that's responsible to be your coach, your mentor, your solutionary, whatever you want to call it, and leading with process instead of leading with features.
Good night.
Absolutely.
Good night. Well, look,
let's drop in one-liners. It's unbelievable.
It is. Well, Danny, it is always a pleasure. And every time we get in a situation like this where we have a few minutes set aside to talk, I always walk away feeling like my perspective has been expanded. And I know that's going to be true for the people who hear this episode. So on behalf of Kyle, Michael, and myself, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, guys.
Guys, I didn't know. He sent me into a poetic trance.
You were just quieter than I've ever heard you.
He hit me with the whole question.
At one point, I saw you laying on a couch in the back. When did you get the therapist couch in your office?
The weird thing
Where's
is,
Cirillo go? I think I see his feet.
by the time I got on top of that piano, I was like, where'd these high heels come from? No, the question, usually when you're on podcasts, especially when you've been doing it for as long as the three of us have, you're like,
right.
Sometimes people are like, oh, and then I was asked this question and, oh, I just love this question. And he kind of did that. And I was like braced for impact. And then he actually hit us with a banger. And I was like, bam, go.
Yeah.
I just like
Michael usually will come in with, what occurs to me is, and he'll like lead in that way. And you never did that.
No, because I'm still like
the occur was still processing the little spinny wheel of what occurs
I'm
to
in
Michael.
one of those,
that's going to hit you at like 10:30 p.m. tomorrow night. You're gonna be like,
yeah. I mean, the thing that I admire about Danny is that you can tell. I mean, he brings up his father, his parents. He brings them up, nearly every time he's interviewed. You can tell there's a deep sense of meaning and purpose that drives him, and he used my favorite words, my word of the year. He used the word intention several times throughout that interview. And, gosh, I just think what he got me thinking about is what would happen if just a fraction of a percent of the people that work within our industry got clear about the intention with which they behave each day. That's what I was like, oh, dang, the whole landscape changes.
No joke. Well, look, he's going to be on the ground at ASOTUCon with us in September. So if you want to meet him, you can do that. Just get a ticket. We want to see you there so bad. Is it weird that I want everybody to be ASOTUCon, whether or not they're in the auto industry or not? I want to tell like the Uber driver about it. I'm like, hey, why? Because I know you will leave like in a better shape than you showed up.
Absolutely.
And if you're in the auto industry, way better shape than when you showed
all
up.
these cab drivers that are like, that was amazing, but the meter's still been running for the last 4 hours.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Well, on behalf of myself, Michael Cirillo, Paul J. Daly, thanks for joining us here on Auto Collabs. We'll see you next time.
Welcome to Auto Collabs.
Why are we recording?
Are we rolling yet?